The story begins in silence, with an image most people know but few truly understand. Keanu Reeves walking alone on a quiet street at night. No cameras, no lights, no crowd of fans. Just a man with his head slightly lowered, his steps unhurried, his face calm yet heavy with thoughts. This is not John Wick. This is Keanu himself. And behind that calm face lies a story that is far more powerful than the movies he plays in. The truth is that the real story of Keanu Reeves is not about violence, revenge, or action. It is about pain, survival, humility, and kindness. It is about a man who has lived through tragedies that could have broken anyone, yet he continues to walk with grace. It is about the small choices he makes every single day that reveal his real character. This is the story of what John Wick reveals about the real Keanu Reeves. And once you know the truth, you will never see him in the same way again. From the beginning, Keanu's life was marked by struggle. He was born in Lebanon, but his father left when he was only a child. He grew up moving from city to city, never really staying in one place long enough to feel safe or at home. He struggled with dyslexia, making school difficult. While other children found it easy to read and write, he felt trapped in silence, unable to express what was in his heart. But even then, Keanu carried himself with quiet resilience. He did not fight for attention. He did not complain. He simply endured, learning to find strength in silence. As he grew older, tragedy struck again and again. When he was still young, he lost his close friend, River Phoenix, who died suddenly at the age of 23. It was a loss that cut deep into Keanu's heart, because River was more than just a friend. He was like a brother, someone who understood the struggles of fame and life in Hollywood. To lose him so suddenly left a scar that never truly healed. But the pain did not stop there. Keanu found love with Jennifer Syme, a woman who made him believe in family, in happiness, in a future filled with light. But when they were expecting a child, tragedy struck once more. Their baby was stillborn, and the grief shattered their lives. Not long after, Jennifer herself died in a car accident. For most people, this much loss would have destroyed everything inside them. But Keanu carried his grief differently. He did not speak loudly about his pain. He did not show anger to the world. Instead, he learned to live with it quietly, carrying it like a shadow that followed him everywhere. Many say this is why his role as John Wick feels so real. In the film, John Wick is a man broken by the loss of his wife. When the dog, the last gift from her, is taken from him, he breaks. But what makes the role powerful is not the action or the revenge. It is the raw honesty of grief. When we see John Wick crying, we are not just watching a character. We are seeing pieces of Keanu's real life, his real sorrow, reflected on screen. Yet here is where the story takes its surprising turn. Instead of letting pain make him bitter, Keanu chose kindness. He is one of the few actors in Hollywood known for living a simple life, free of arrogance. He rides the subway like any other person. He gives up his seat to strangers. He quietly donates millions of dollars to children's hospitals without attaching his name. He respects everyone on set, from the director to the person cleaning the floors. For him, kindness is not an act. It is who he is. Many who worked with him share stories that sound almost unreal. Once, when filming The Matrix, he gave away part of his earnings to the special effects and costume teams because he believed they deserved more recognition. Another time, when a stranger's car broke down on the side of the road, he stopped, helped push it, and waited until help arrived. These are not the actions of a superstar who seeks praise. These are the actions of a man who has seen enough pain to know how much even a small act of kindness can matter. What makes Keanu truly different is his humility. In interviews, he does not present himself as larger than life. He speaks softly, with thought and care, as if every word must be chosen gently. When asked about fame, he often says he does not care about being remembered. All he wants is to live quietly and do good. In a world where so many chase power, money, and attention, Keanu walks the opposite path. And perhaps that is what makes him unforgettable. But beneath this kindness and humility lies resilience. The ability to endure pain without letting it destroy him. The ability to keep moving forward even when the past feels too heavy. John Wick, as a character, may be unstoppable in combat, but Keanu is unstoppable in spirit. He refuses to let tragedy define him. He refuses to let grief erase his humanity. Instead, he carries his pain, and through it, he has learned compassion. This is why so many people feel connected to him. Not because of his movies, not because of the fame, but because he represents something rare. A person who suffers deeply, yet continues to treat others with respect. Someone who knows loss, yet still chooses to give love. Someone who has every reason to turn cold, but instead remains warm. In this story, you will see how the journey of Keanu Reeves mirrors the story of John Wick, and how the man behind the character is even more powerful than the legend we see on screen. His life teaches us that no matter how many times we are broken, we still have the power to rise again. His story shows us that respect is not about words, but about actions. His choices prove that resilience does not come from strength alone, but from humility and kindness. This is only the beginning. As we move forward, you will see deeper into the untold truths of his life. Stories that reveal not just the man on the screen, but the human being who quietly carries wisdom, pain, and hope in equal measure. And perhaps, as you listen, you will find that his story is not only about Keanu Reeves, it is also about us. Because in his silence, we see our own struggles. In his kindness, we see what we could become. In his resilience, we see the truth that no matter what happens, we too can rise again. The story of Keanu Reeves is not told in headlines or flashing lights. It is told in the quiet spaces of life, the places where most people are not watching. When the cameras are gone and the world is silent, who we truly are is revealed. For Keanu, those moments show a man who has learned to live with pain, but also a man who has chosen to turn that pain into understanding. After the tragedies that shook his life, many thought Keanu would disappear into isolation forever. And in truth, he did step away at times. There were periods when he avoided interviews, avoided the spotlight, and simply vanished into the rhythm of his own quiet life. But this was not because he gave up. It was because he was healing. He understood that grief is not something that vanishes. It is something that must be carried, like a stone in your pocket, always present, always heavy, but something you learn to live with. In those years of silence, Keanu built a philosophy that shaped the rest of his life. It was not complicated. It was not about fame, wealth, or success. It was about simplicity. He often said that the most important things were respect, love, and compassion, and those words were not empty. They were the foundation of how he treated everyone he met. People who worked on sets with him often share a similar story. He is not the first to arrive with a loud voice. He is not the one who demands attention. He is often the one standing quietly in the corner, speaking gently, greeting everyone with respect. He remembers names. He treats the costume designer with the same care as the producer. He makes those around him feel valued, no matter their position. This humility comes from his past. Keanu knows what it is like to feel small, to feel forgotten. He knows what it is like to grow up with hardship and without stability. He knows what it is like to lose everything that matters. And because he knows that pain, he never wants to make others feel it. Instead, he chooses to give. But kindness is not always easy. There were times when people questioned his choices. Why does a man worth millions live in a modest apartment instead of a mansion? Why does he ride the subway instead of hiring drivers? Why does he share his wealth instead of keeping it? To many, these choices seem strange, but to Keanu, they are simple. He believes that comfort is not about luxury, it is about peace. And peace cannot be bought. It comes from knowing that you are living in a way that is true to yourself. This is why so many stories of him helping strangers sound almost unbelievable. Once, when a plane made an emergency landing, most passengers were upset, lost, or angry. But Keanu stepped forward. He calmly spoke to the group, explained what was happening, and even arranged buses for them when no one else took charge. He played music for them, shared small details about the journey, and made the entire experience lighter. In that moment, he was not a movie star. He was simply another traveler trying to make sure no one felt alone. Another time, he was spotted sitting on the sidewalk with a homeless man, sharing snacks and listening. He did not call attention to it. He did not ask for cameras. He simply sat down, equal to equal, and gave his time. For him, respect is not a performance. It is real. When asked about these stories, Keanu often shrugs. He does not see them as remarkable. To him, they are just small acts of humanity. But this is exactly what makes them powerful. Because in a world that often praises wealth, noise, and power, Keanu shows that true strength is found in humility. And yet, behind this kindness, there is always a shadow of grief. It follows him into every role, every moment of his life. It is visible in the quiet way he speaks, in the careful way he smiles. But instead of hiding from it, he allows it to guide him. That grief is what makes his acting feel so real. That grief is what makes his silence so powerful. When we watch John Wick mourning his wife, we feel it because Keanu has lived it. When we see him sitting alone, staring into the distance, we recognize it because it is not just a character. It is a reflection of real loss. But what makes this extraordinary is not the pain itself. It is the choice he makes with it. Keanu has said before that grief never ends, but it changes shape. He explained that you do not get over it, but you learn to live alongside it. And in living alongside it, you can still create moments of joy. He has chosen to honor those he lost, not by drowning in sorrow, but by carrying them in his actions. Every act of kindness is a way of remembering. Every moment of respect is a way of keeping their spirit alive. This is where we see the true connection between Keanu Reeves and the character of John Wick. Both men are shaped by loss. Both men walk with ghosts. But while John Wick turns his pain into vengeance, Keanu turns his pain into compassion. The screen may show us a man of violence, but the real man is one of peace. Still, this does not mean life became easy for him. Fame is heavy. Expectations are heavy. People often forget that behind the actor is a human being who still feels sadness, who still struggles, who still questions himself. But what keeps Keanu grounded is his simple truth. He does not chase the world. He allows life to be what it is, and he tries to move through it with grace. It is this grace that inspires millions. Fans do not admire him only because he can fight on screen or play powerful roles. They admire him because he represents a rare honesty in a world filled with illusion. He does not hide behind masks. He does not try to be more than he is. He simply is. And that simplicity is what makes him unforgettable. The story of Keanu Reeves teaches us something we often forget. Kindness does not need to be loud. Respect does not need to be demanded. Resilience does not mean you do not feel pain. It means you continue step by step, even when pain follows you. As we move forward in this story, we will see more of the moments that reveal who Keanu really is. Moments of quiet resilience, of surprising generosity, of choices that seem small but carry deep meaning. And through these moments, we will begin to understand why his life resonates so deeply with people across the world. Because in the end, his story is not only about him. It is about what it means to be human, to carry loss, and still choose love. There is a saying that you never truly know a person until you see how they treat those who cannot give them anything in return. When people share stories about Keanu Reeves, this truth shines the brightest. Time and again, he has shown that his respect does not come with conditions. He treats strangers with the same care he gives to friends. He treats the quiet workers behind the scenes with the same value as the stars in front of the cameras. And in this, we begin to see the deeper heart of his story. One story that became well known was during the filming of The Matrix. While the world saw the movie as a massive success, most people never realized how much work went into making it. Behind the action scenes, behind the effects, there were hundreds of people working long hours, costume designers, set builders, special effects teams. Keanu understood this. He knew the movie could not exist without them. So when he received a large payment from the film, he gave away a significant portion to those teams. He did not announce it. He did not use it for publicity. He simply handed it over because he believed they deserved it. Another time, he gifted motorcycles to the stunt team after filming. For him, it was not about showing off wealth. It was about gratitude. He wanted them to feel recognized, to know that their effort mattered. This kind of action is rare in an industry where attention often goes only to the stars. But Keanu has never cared about standing above others. He has always cared about standing beside them. This attitude comes from something deeper, his understanding of struggle. He knows how easily people can be overlooked. He knows how much difference it makes when someone shows respect. This is why he remembers names, why he greets people with kindness, why he looks them in the eye. Small details that to him are simply natural, but to others mean everything. But life was not always so simple for him. In the early years of his career, Keanu faced challenges that could have easily broken his path. Hollywood is not a gentle place. It can lift someone up overnight and tear them down just as quickly. There were times when critics doubted his talent. Some said his acting was too stiff, too quiet, not emotional enough. But Keanu never fought back with anger. He let his work speak for itself. He did not argue with critics, did not try to prove himself through pride. Instead, he continued to work, to learn, to grow. And slowly, the world began to notice something. What seemed like stillness in his acting was actually depth. What seemed like simplicity was actually honesty. Keanu does not perform emotions loudly because he knows that real pain does not always scream. Sometimes it sits quietly in the eyes. Sometimes it speaks only through silence. This is what made his roles powerful, and this is what made audiences connect to him in ways they could not always explain. But here is where the story takes another unexpected turn. Fame and success did not harden him. Instead, they made him more generous. When he reached the height of stardom, he could have surrounded himself with wealth, with comfort, with luxury. Yet he chose to live modestly. He rode public transport. He spent time walking the streets without security. He sat in cafes alone, reading, enjoying simple meals. For him, joy was never about excess. It was about peace. Peace, however, is something that does not come easily when you carry loss. And Keanu carried more than most. But rather than letting grief control him, he turned it into a quiet force that shaped his choices. He has often said that we carry everyone we lose with us. And when you watch him, you can feel that truth. Every kindness he gives to others is a way of honoring those who are no longer here. Every gentle word is a way of remembering what pain feels like and making sure others do not feel it alone. What makes his story so deeply human is that he does not pretend to be perfect. He does not stand on stages and speak as if he has answers to life's questions. Instead, he admits that life is hard, that grief never leaves, that happiness is fragile. But he also shows, through his actions, that even in pain, there is room for compassion. This is why so many people around the world admire him, even those who are not fans of his movies. He represents something rare in today's world, someone who does not let suffering turn into bitterness, someone who still believes in kindness even after life has been unkind.
And when you look at the character of John Wick, you see the reflection of this truth. John Wick is a man haunted by loss, yet driven by memory. He fights not only because of what was taken, but because of what he once loved. In the same way, Keanu lives not only with grief, but with love for those he lost. The pain remains, but it is joined by compassion. But his journey does not end here. In the years that followed, Keanu continued to surprise the world with choices that showed who he truly was. He kept giving quietly. He kept living simply. And he kept showing that even in silence, you can leave a powerful mark. This is why his story matters so much. Because in a time when many measure success by how loudly you can be seen, Keanu teaches us that real success is measured by how deeply you touch others. His life reminds us that humility can be more powerful than pride, that kindness can echo louder than fame, and that resilience is not about never falling. It is about rising every time you do. As we go deeper into his story, we will see not only the hardships he faced, but also the wisdom he gained. Wisdom that shows us how to live with loss, how to walk with respect, and how to find strength in humility. And perhaps through his story, we will begin to see the hidden strength within our own lives. The more we look into the life of Keanu Reeves, the more we see how his choices reflect something far beyond Hollywood. His life is not only about films or fame, it is about how a human being can walk through suffering and still choose light over darkness. In this part of his story, we step into the years when his fame grew larger than ever, yet his heart remained rooted in humility. When the Matrix trilogy came to life, the world saw Keanu as a global superstar. Neo became a symbol of freedom, of breaking away from control, of fighting for truth. Audiences were captivated by the action, the philosophy, and the visuals. But behind the scenes, Keanu was living in a way that almost contradicted the idea of stardom. While other stars of his level bought mansions and traveled with entourages, Keanu lived in a modest apartment, wore simple clothes, and still took the subway to work. Many fans recall moments of sitting in a train and suddenly realizing the man beside them was Keanu Reeves. No guards, no cameras, no walls between him and the people. And more often than not, he would be the one who stood up to give his seat to someone who needed it. This became a story people could not forget. A man worth millions choosing to live simply, choosing to act with kindness, choosing to be human first and famous second. There was another story, one that spread quietly at first but grew larger as people shared it. During the long shoot of the Matrix sequels, Keanu noticed how hard the crew worked. The endless hours, the heavy pressure, the constant fatigue. So when Christmas came around, he bought every member of the stunt team a brand new motorcycle. It was not just a gift, it was his way of saying, I see you, I respect you, and you matter. This was not an isolated act. Time and again, he gave parts of his earnings to others. He supported hospitals, medical research, and countless charities, but he never placed his name on them. He never asked for recognition. He never made a speech about generosity. He simply gave, quietly, because he believed it was the right thing to do. But here lies the most powerful part of his story. Even while giving so much, Keanu never denied his own pain. He did not wear a mask of false happiness. When asked about grief, he spoke with honesty. He admitted that sadness never truly leaves. In one interview, when asked what happens after death, he paused, his eyes heavy with truth, and simply said, I know that the ones who love us will miss us. It was a short answer, but it carried more weight than long speeches. It was the kind of answer that comes only from someone who has truly lived loss. What makes Keanu's life remarkable is not only his kindness, but the balance he found between pain and peace. He did not hide his grief, but he also did not let it control him. Instead, he allowed it to deepen his understanding of life. He once explained that grief changes shape but never ends. This acceptance gave him a way to carry it without being crushed by it. And this is why so many people feel connected to him. Because we all know pain, we all know loss, but most of us struggle to find a way to live with it. When we see Keanu, we see proof that even with heartbreak, we can still live kindly. We can still smile, we can still give, and we can still choose compassion.
The character of John Wick became a perfect reflection of this truth. In the film, Wick is a man shaped by grief, broken by love, lost, walking with shadows. But instead of giving up, he continues to fight, carrying his pain with every step. The role felt real because it was real. Keanu did not have to act grief. He understood it. And in this way, the audience was not only watching a character, they were also seeing a reflection of the man himself. But the world rarely sees the full story. Many only see the action star, the quiet interviews, or the small stories shared online. What they do not always see is the discipline, the resilience, and the deep patience that allow him to live this way. Behind every act of kindness, there is a choice. Behind every moment of humility, there is effort. Keanu chooses every day to walk in humility, even when life would allow him to do otherwise. And in this choice, there is a lesson for us. We often believe that greatness is about success, about standing above others. But Keanu's life shows the opposite. Greatness is not about rising higher than others. It is about lifting others with you. Greatness is not about being remembered. It is about making people feel they matter. Greatness is not about escaping pain. It is about learning to walk with it, with dignity. This part of his story shows us why respect for him goes beyond his movies. It is not just fans who admire him. It is ordinary people who have met him for a brief moment and walked away forever changed. It is colleagues who worked with him and still tell stories of his humility years later. It is strangers who saw him act with quiet kindness when no one else was looking. And perhaps the most surprising part is that Keanu never seems to see himself as special. When asked about his life, he often says he is just another human being trying to live. This, in truth, is the greatest lesson of all. Because in that simple belief, he shows us that greatness does not require power, fame, or wealth. It requires respect, humility, resilience, and kindness. And this is why his story continues to inspire, not because he is perfect, but because he is human in the most genuine way. As the years passed, Keanu Reeves carried his life forward in the same quiet way. No loud announcements, no need for constant attention, only a steady rhythm of work, kindness, and humility. But beneath this calm surface, his journey continued to hold unexpected twists. Fame, grief, and compassion remained part of him. But so did something else. A deep resilience that helped him stand tall when others would have fallen. Many people think of resilience as unshakable strength, but Keanu shows us that resilience is something different. It is not about pretending that pain does not exist. It is not about walking without scars. It is about learning to move forward even when scars remain. Keanu once said that grief does not disappear, but it changes form. His own life proves this truth. He never erased his pain, yet he still found ways to live fully. This resilience appeared in both his work and his personal life. On screen, he chose roles that carried echoes of his own struggles. Characters like John Wick or Neo were not just heroes. They were symbols of endurance, men who faced impossible odds but continued forward. Audiences connected not because of the action alone, but because they felt something real in his silence, in his eyes, in the way he carried himself. Off-screen, his resilience appeared in the way he kept giving. Even after years of loss, he continued to live with compassion. There are countless small stories that reveal this. Once, during filming, a fan waited outside in the cold for hours just for a chance to meet him. Instead of giving only a quick autograph, Keanu sat with the fan, spoke gently, and listened to his story. Another time, when a young worker at a gas station shyly asked for a signature, Keanu not only signed but also spent time asking about the worker's life, making him feel valued. These are not acts of a man who has lost his way. These are the choices of someone who has turned grief into empathy. He knows how easily a person can feel unseen, and he chooses, again and again, to make them feel noticed. But life continued to test him. Hollywood is filled with noise, rumors, criticism, constant expectations. While others might chase attention, Keanu often stepped away from it. There were times when years passed quietly, with little news about him. Some wondered why he kept his distance. But the truth was simple. He valued peace more than fame. He understood that true healing comes in silence, not in crowds. Yet even in his quiet life, people noticed him. One day, a video of him giving up his seat on a subway went viral. It was a small act, something he probably forgot about soon after. But for millions, it was a reminder that humility can exist even in a world filled with pride. People shared it not because it was dramatic, but because it was rare. And then, in moments of interviews, his words revealed his heart. He once said, "You need to be happy to live. I don't." It was a haunting sentence, but not hopeless. It was honest. It showed a man who understood that happiness is fragile, but life can still hold meaning without it. In another moment, when asked about loss, he answered quietly that those who love us will miss us when we are gone. Such answers carried weight because they were not rehearsed. They came from a place of truth. This is why Keanu's story holds such power. Because he does not hide the reality of suffering. He does not pretend that everything becomes easy. He admits that grief remains, that pain stays. But at the same time, he proves that life can still move forward, that kindness can still exist, and that peace can still be found in small ways. Through all of this, we begin to see the deeper lesson of his journey. Respect is not given because of fame. It is given because of humility. Kindness is not powerful because it is grand. It is powerful because it is consistent, quiet, and genuine. Resilience is not about being unbroken. It is about walking with your broken pieces and still choosing to live with dignity. And perhaps this is why Keanu Reeves continues to inspire people across the world. Not because he is untouchable, but because he is touchable. Not because he is perfect, but because he is real. He lives in a way that reminds us that life is fragile, yet still worth living. His story tells us something simple but easy to forget. You do not need wealth, or fame, or success to matter. What makes you matter is how you treat others. What makes you unforgettable is the respect you show, the kindness you give, and the resilience you carry. In the next part of his journey, we will see even more of these lessons come alive. Stories of him facing hardship, making choices, and continuing to live with quiet strength. And through them, we will begin to see not only who he is, but also what we ourselves are capable of becoming. The story of Keanu Reeves is not only about pain, kindness, and resilience. It is also about the way he quietly reshaped what it means to live with purpose. While many stars chase legacies, Keanu never seemed interested in being remembered as a legend. He often said that he does not care if people remember his name. What matters to him is how people feel in the moments they share with him. This truth can be seen in countless encounters. One evening, a fan nervously approached him at a small diner. Instead of brushing the fan off or hurrying away, Keanu invited him to sit. They talked over coffee for nearly an hour. Not about Hollywood or fame, but about life, family, and struggles. For the fan, it was unforgettable. For Keanu, it was simply natural. Another story tells of him walking alone in the city when a group of young people spotted him and asked for a photo. He not only agreed, but took time to laugh with them, share jokes, and make them feel comfortable. Afterward, one of them said, "He made us feel like we were the stars, not him." These small moments add up to something larger, the image of a man who never lets fame remove his humanity. But his humility also showed in how he viewed his own career. During interviews, he rarely spoke of success as if it belonged to him alone. Instead, he credited the directors, the crew, the writers, and the audience. He often said that films are made by teams, not individuals. In an industry built on ego, this kind of humility stood out. What is most surprising, however, is how he used his pain as fuel for connection. When others might have turned bitter, Keanu turned gentle. When others might have closed their hearts, he opened his. He admitted openly that grief never leaves him. Yet instead of hiding it, he allows it to deepen his compassion. This is why, when he acts in roles like John Wick, audiences feel something more than performance. They feel truth. Yet life continued to test him. There were long seasons when the world seemed to forget him. After the Matrix trilogy, he experienced years where he was not in the spotlight. For some, this would have been a crisis. But Keanu embraced it. He took time away, rode his motorcycle, wrote quietly, and lived outside the noise. He understood that life is not about always being seen. It is about being present, even when no one is watching. During these quiet years, he built something more important than fame: peace within himself. He showed that you can step back without losing yourself. He showed that you can live without constant attention and still hold meaning. In fact, those silent years only made his later return more powerful. When John Wick was released, people did not only celebrate the action, they celebrated the return of a man who had lived through darkness and still chosen light. And this is where the connection between his real life and his characters becomes undeniable. In John Wick, we see a man who keeps moving forward even when the world is against him. In Neo, we see someone who searches for truth, who questions reality, who chooses to fight for freedom. These characters are larger than life, but the man who plays them carries those same values in his own quiet way. Keanu Reeves does not need to give speeches about kindness, humility, or resilience. His life is the speech. His choices are the message. When he gives up his seat, when he shares his wealth, when he sits with a stranger, he shows us what it means to live with respect. And perhaps most importantly, he shows us that pain does not have to make us cruel. It can make us kind. This part of his journey teaches us something important. Greatness is not about being perfect. It is about being real. It is about living in a way that touches others, even in small ways. It is about understanding that every person you meet carries their own story, their own pain, their own battles. And when you choose to treat them with kindness, you are giving them something more powerful than words. You are giving them dignity. This is why the world respects Keanu Reeves. Not because of his roles, not because of his fame, but because he has proven that even in silence, you can inspire. Even in grief, you can give. Even in humility, you can stand taller than those who chase pride. And as his story continues, we see the impact of a life lived with these values, not only in the movies, not only in headlines, but in the quiet memories of those whose lives he touched. In the final part of this story, we will see how Keanu's journey, from tragedy to kindness, from silence to strength, reveals lessons that belong not just to him, but to all of us. The story of Keanu Reeves reaches its final part, not with a grand ending, but with a quiet truth, one that stays with us long after the last word. His journey has been marked by pain, loss, struggle, kindness, humility, and resilience. But more than anything, it has been marked by choice. The choice to keep moving forward, the choice to live gently, the choice to honor life even when it has been unkind. Keanu's life teaches us that tragedy can break us, but it can also shape us. It can turn us bitter, or it can turn us compassionate. In his case, it shaped a man who carries sorrow, yet still chooses kindness. It shaped a man who understands that respect is not earned by power, but by how you treat those around you. Over the years, stories about him continued to spread. Fans meeting him by chance always spoke about the same thing, not just his presence, but the way he made them feel. One person described how he listened with full attention, as if their words were the most important in the world. Another shared how he helped them when no one else noticed. These are not dramatic acts. They are simple, human choices. Yet those choices ripple through the lives of others, creating memories that last forever. When we look at the character of John Wick, we see a man fighting against impossible odds, carrying pain, yet never stopping. In many ways, this mirrors Keanu's real life. But there is a difference. John Wick's story is one of vengeance. Keanu's story is one of compassion. John Wick fights to survive. Keanu chooses to live with grace. And that is where the deepest lesson lies. We cannot always control what happens to us. We cannot always prevent pain or loss or hardship. But we can choose how we live through it. We can choose to let pain make us cruel, or we can choose to let it make us kind. Keanu shows us that choosing kindness is not weakness. It is strength of the highest kind. His humility is also a lesson in itself. In a world that praises fame and wealth, he teaches us that peace comes not from having everything, but from living simply and truthfully. He never allowed stardom to blind him to the value of others. He never placed himself above anyone. This humility is what makes him truly unforgettable. But perhaps the most powerful lesson of all is resilience. Keanu has faced losses that could have silenced him forever. Yet he continues to live, not in denial of his grief, but alongside it. He shows that resilience is not about erasing pain, it is about carrying it with dignity. It is about finding moments of light, even in the shadows. And so, when we ask what John Wick reveals about the real Keanu Reeves, the answer is clear. John Wick shows us the pain, the endurance, and the fight. But Keanu himself shows us something greater, the ability to live with kindness, humility, and quiet strength, even when life has taken so much away. His story is not only about him, it is about us. It is about how each of us will face struggles, losses, and moments where we feel broken. But through his example, we are reminded that we can still choose respect. We can still choose kindness. We can still rise again, even if we rise quietly. In the end, Keanu Reeves leaves us with no grand speeches, no demands for legacy, no desperate need to be remembered. What he leaves is something far more lasting. The memory of a man who carried grief with grace, who treated others with dignity, who lived humbly, and who reminded the world that humanity itself is the greatest role any of us can play. His story tells us that we do not need to be heroes on a screen to matter. We only need to be human. And that is what makes Keanu Reeves unforgettable.